Hey there, my name's Danny Leibrandt, and you are listening to The Local Marketeer, where we have local marketing experts every week. Today, I'm with Blake Denman, who is a local SEO expert. Blake has been in local SEO for 18 years now. It actually just hit 18. We were kind of laughing about it. And he has also been running his digital marketing agency, Rickety Roo, for 16 years now. So been in the space for a while. I think most people in local SEO know about Blake. And he's also super involved in the local community. He's on the staff of local university. He's been featured on places like Bright Local. He's also a local search ranking factors contributor, which, by the way, if you don't know what that is, it's basically like the biggest blog or kind of conglomerate of information regarding what's going on in local search. That's usually every year, but now it's kind of been going every 2 years. So definitely looking forward to that coming out in the next few months or so. And obviously that's through White Spark if you're not familiar. And let's see, what else is Blake involved in? So he's also let's see, a Moz recommended company, also featured in SEMrush, and I believe you spoke at PubCon and like some other huge things. So Blake is super well known in the local SEO space, super well respected. So yeah, so excited to have you on the show, Blake.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So again, you've been running Rickety Roo for 16 years now, which by the way, love the name. Can you tell me what you were doing before Rickety Roo?
Yeah, I was in-house at a telemarketing company that sold local SEO for like $99 to $149 per month. And I got the job because I could type fast. That's the only reason I got the job. I knew the vice president of sales, and I became a production manager within the first 6 months. And then I took over and ran their pay-per-click division for the remainder of my time there before I went out on my own.
Okay,
And
awesome.
yeah, before that was doing outside sales in the same industry as my father. Uh, used to be an EMT. Like that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay, cool. And what made you start Rickety Roo?
I initially really went freelance on my own because I wanted to focus on school. I was going to recert as an EMT. I was going to move to Arizona, go straight to paramedic school, and then go the paramedic firefighter route. And then 6 months when I went on my own, so I started the agency February of 2009. October 5th of 2009, I was riding a fixed gear road bike with no helmet and ended up getting into an accident. I had a severe traumatic brain injury, had a fractured skull and a bleed in my brain, was in a chemical induced coma, was in ICU for 3 days, then critical care for 3 more, and then discharged. Um, and that kind of automatically made me a liability, like I would never be able to fulfill that career path that I was
Mm.
on. So that's kind of like how I started. It was initially a means to an end, uh, and then kind of slowly started growing it from there.
Wow, that is crazy. Are you okay now? Is there
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I had some short-term memory issues for a bit. Worked through all that stuff and done like a lot of testing since because I'm just very curious about neuroscience too, and I'm always learning. I'm always trying new protocols and things, and cognitively, and it's good to go.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, I'm glad you're okay now. That sounds like a seriously kind of major incident. So, okay, cool. So then you start Rickety Roo. Tell me what the first few years of that was like.
Uh, Honestly, I was just kind of coasting. I really had no vision or dream of like having an agency, let alone it being a remote agency and doing all these things. Initially, it was just like, well, I'm able to pay my bills. I was in my early-ish to mid 20s then, and it's like, well, I'll just kind of see what what keeps going on. Um, Learn some lessons, like just in business, that no matter how good things are, things can change at the drop of a hat. Um, and then when I met my now wife, I kind of realized it would be nice if I wasn't doing everything, like doing all the work, all the admin, everything, and slowly start to kind of grow it from there.
Hmm. Okay, interesting. And what kind of clients were you taking on?
Back then, it was they were still home service providers. My largest client was a garage door company. Um, then I took on this company that did animal trapping, which we just started work. I just started working with them again uh, after like several years of not working with them. And the owner reached back out. Uh, yeah, then I worked briefly on there's like an auto collision shop in Long Beach, California that I worked with for a bit. Cosmetic dentistry. One of my favorites was a PI firm in Southern California. I believe they were located in Corona, and I think within 6 months, like I got him ranking everywhere he wanted to rank for the keywords he wanted to rank for. And he called me up and fired me. He said, "Hey, thank you very much, and I don't need you anymore." And I said, "Wait, hang on." And then that was it. And then like 3 or 4 months later, he called me up and said, "Hey, what did you do to my SEO?" I'm like, "I didn't do anything to your SEO. Like your competition is now outranking you." And he's like, "Well, how much to get me back?" I'm like, "I don't think I can work with you because I'm going to get you there and then you're just going to fire me again." So stopped working with him. Um, yeah, worked with an artificial turf company for a number of years too. It's been quite the spectrum. Uh, but the last like several years, we kind of niched down to get a little bit more focused. But then we still get uh, leads that are, occasionally they want to work with us because of how we operate. And it's in an industry or niche that we never worked in before. And we're like, well, we always lead with the caveat we have no experience in your industry.
Mm,
Um, we're absolutely interested, uh, and sometimes they welcome that like a breath of fresh air.
mm. Okay, cool. So you've really done everything in local, which I think is awesome. You really have a kind of a wide array of experience. Pertaining to that story, I'd like you to explain for people that don't really understand why shouldn't you fire your SEO agency when they get you results? Like, why does that matter? Why shouldn't they?
Well, we're all competing against very small real estate, and it seems to shrink more and more each year. Um, Once you get there, it's like cool, but you need to maintain that, and the only
Mm,
way to maintain that is to keep outperforming everybody else
hmm
by ways of like whatever your strategy entails. If it's focused more on the content development side or on link building side, because your competitors are wanting to outrank you,
mm,
and they're going to
yeah.
keep trying to outrank you, and they eventually will if you just get stale.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've found that the recurring process in SEO is mainly those three things that you just touched on, which is maintenance, content, and links. Would you say that's right, or is there anything else?
Yeah, what we're going to be rolling out very soon, we're just kind of coming up with our pricing around it, is it's being called SXO, Search Experience Optimization.
Mm,
So we had we have a case study on Microsoft Clarity's website, kind of showing the case study. Client we've been working with for a number of years, he ranks everywhere he wants to rank, and we were kind of looking at like, well, what else should we do? And so then Celeste, who runs that little division, kind of came up with like, well, what if we tried to improve the conversion rate from organic traffic on the pages? So did one experiment, which and it wasn't anything dramatic. It was very, very subtle. It was mainly simply moving up a call to action a little bit.
mm,
And it resulted in like 122% improvement in conversion rate from traffic that was already going to that
wow.
page. So just go, oh, we have something here. So instead of looking at like, okay, well, we're ranking everywhere. What else can we do? It's like, well, what's the conversion rate? Same rules apply with paid search. If your baseline conversion rate, let's say, is 11%, well, what can you do to get it up to 15 to 20?
hmm Yeah. No, I've seen that's a huge and actually pretty easy mover. Like if you can just move a button on a page, that takes a few minutes, and if you can, get like 100% returns, that's insane. So
Yeah.
I've definitely been looking into conversion rate optimization more and realizing it's not just about getting the visibility. It's not just, let's get as many clicks from SEO, but are we converting all of those people? So I 100% agree.
Mhm.
Definitely. And are there any other like little tricks or tactics to improve conversion rate besides something like that of moving the button up the page?
I mean, it first you have to establish a baseline set of data, and then you see
Mm,
like where people drop off, where people are like disengaging. Oftentimes, especially with home service providers, like getting collateral from clients, like good quality imagery is
Yeah.
often difficult.
Yeah, it is.
So then when you're, writing really good content, it's, sometimes it can look like a giant wall of text.
Mm,
And creating simple separation is going to help improve conversion rates. Adding imagery always helps too. Just making it easier to scan a page versus like, oh, this looks like something from a dictionary. I don't want to read this, and then they bounce.
yeah. Okay, cool. Is there like a certain baseline conversion rate percentage that companies should opt for? Is it kind of different between every industry and every kind of lead generation method?
Uh, Depending on, I guess, the intent of the traffic that's going to the page, it's probably going to vary. If it's transactional nature, you would naturally believe like, okay, the conversion rate should be higher on this page,
Hmm.
whether that conversion happens on that page or a different page on the website. If it's more informational nature, uh, like you work also in home services too.
Hmm.
It's like typically you're not going to get a ton of informational queries to then build an
Yeah.
email flow, and then to get them to
Uh-huh.
convert to have someone a resident a house sign up for ongoing green pest control services, right?
Hmm.
Where it's like, hey, I found cockroaches and spiders. I need someone to take care of this now. Like that's all
Hmm.
transactional nature, but different types of legal, medical, like that can be there can be more informational content at play, which there's like more traffic is going to be available because you're kind of opening up that funnel. But conversion rates from there are going to be less than transactional pages in nature. Uh, like a baseline conversion rate from a transactional page, if that's all it is, at the bare minimum, if those pages like are not converting at least at 5%, then there's a big issue.
Mm, mm.
Like 5% is not a big threshold. Like usually want to see at minimum 8%. Uh, but sometimes, you look at what's coming in and you go like, oh, well, there's some massive room for improvement.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Um, Something that I heard on a podcast that I was doing a few days ago, they mentioned that you should have a pop-up on your website, but I think people kind of debate about this because it slows your page speed down. Do you use pop-ups for your clients?
Uh, no, I don't like, as a user, I don't like pop-ups.
Yeah,
I
I agree.
think they can, I think pop-ups uh, can work. It's, I'm going to throw a whole industry under the bus, like auto dealerships. The amount of, if you're looking at buying a new or used car, every page you go to, you get a pop up of a chat. And it's
Mm,
like, this was a few months ago, I was looking at, buying a new car, ended up buying a used one, but every page I would go to, every car I would look at, the same pop up with the same default message from, and I was looking at night, like 11 o'clock at night. I'm not really chatting with a real person. It
hmm.
says, hey, I'm a real person here to help you. And it's like, I'm just looking at cars. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to talk to you right now. And every page you get the pop up, and then you got to exit out, exit out. It is annoying.
Hmm.
As a user, I hate that. Um, if you have informational content and maybe a funnel, sure, a pop up can provide a lot of value, but there better be a good reason that pop up shows. Maybe like it's not an automatic pop up, maybe it's based off scroll depth. Then there's a freemium offer attached to it to get them into a funnel. Uh, but as a blanket statement, pop ups are good. And I no, maybe like for the types of clients we usually work with, I would say no.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Good to know. Um, Kind of something that seemed like you were hinting at was that we want to be pushing for the user experience. And I've seen this kind of universally across all of the local SEOs that I've talked to, or just SEOs in general, either that I've talked to or that I've watched interviews about. Would you say that that's like the ultimate thing that you should be optimizing for is the user experience?
I mean, ideally, yes. One of my favorite questions to ask during a kickoff call with a new client, and I always emphasize that the why behind it. And I even tell them, like, I'm going to emphasize the why. And I always ask them, why do you deserve to rank?
Mm.
And because it's an off the cuff question. And, if you send that in a questionnaire, you'll get a decent answer. But when you ask them point blank and they have no idea, then they're kind of caught off guard. And we normally get really good answers asking that question. Sometimes they'll kind of jokingly be like, because we're paying you money. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but seriously, like, why? Why should customers go to you compared to everybody else? What sets you? What are your differentiators?
Mm.
And those types of things can absolutely help with user experience. Like writing content that speaks their language and is way more conversational versus just, wham bam, here's a coupon. Some vendors really like to push coupons, and vendors, I mean like other agencies, because they think like that's the biggest selling point for any type of home service. And I had a client and I asked them, like, I want you to go back like 12 to 24 months and see how many people actually used a coupon from your
Mm.
website. And
Mm.
the answer was two people used coupons that were so heavily, like, it was the first thing you saw on every page on a service page was, oh, here's a special for furnace installation, like furnace repair or AC unit. Like, customers really didn't care about that.
Mm.
And so we rebuilt their website and said, like, I don't think you need coupons at all. That can be, maybe an upsell opportunity for, techs that are out in the field, and that can offer them discount in person,
Mm-hmm.
which is what they saw was happening more and more versus somebody was referencing the coupon that was on the website.
Huh. So why do you think that is? Just because coupons are almost irrelevant now? People just don't really use them? Because I think there could be some use case of maybe it's digital, but why do you think that is?
Depending on like the type of industry, like uh, like let's use legal as an example. I think coupons are a horrible idea for legal,
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's like, oh, sure, often most lawyers will offer like a free 15-minute consult, but like the higher end ones, they don't. Like every consult is paid.
Mm.
Maybe they offer a little bit of a discount compared to their normal rate. But if that's like the biggest thing to get somebody to convert, like that, it's a race to the bottom. The
Mm.
types of clientele you're going to attract are not going to be your ideal clients. Um, for home services, maybe in pest control there can be a little bit more use case because it's an ongoing type
Yeah. Yeah.
relationship where it's like, hey, we have spring special coming on board where you get 10% off for the first year from the monthly, and this is what it includes. Like, yeah, that might help, but it should. I don't think a coupon would be the overall. This is the only factor of why I'm choosing this company is because they have this coupon.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, so I'd like to switch gears a little bit. I'd like to talk kind of like about the history of local SEO. So you know it better than most people. You've been in it for 18 years. Can you kind of give me a summary of what's been going on the past 18 years of like how it started? What was it like back then? And now what is it like now?
What it was like back then? Back then, if you built citations, you ranked in the map pack. Like, it worked very, very well. Like, you had a list. Okay, here's my list of citation sources, build a lot of citations. Um, that since like every time the local search ranking factor survey comes out, like NAP consistency and citations kind of keep getting lower and lower on
Mm-hmm.
uh, the spectrum of like what's important. Even Darren said a couple of years ago, like citations are more table stakes now, where yeah, sure, like you want to take care of the major data aggregators and maybe the top 10, 20, maybe even 30 of like citations that actually matter for that industry. But NAP consistency doesn't really matter anymore.
Mm.
Like that used to be such a big like thing. Like, oh, make sure your business name, your address, your phone number, the website, the category, make sure that matches in hours of operation, match across the entire local search ecosystem. Remember, like David Mim had like uh, this whole chart that showed like Axiom, how there's relation like these feeds to this tier one and tier two, and where you saw this whole ecosystem at play, that doesn't really matter anymore. Like the source of truth now is mainly like that Google listing. Um, what still worked back then, that still works this day, is having keywords in the business name. Like, surprise, surprise, it's a really crappy ranking factor, and the amount of spam that would get mitigated if they just lowered the weight of having keywords in the business name would be monumental. But here we are. It's 2025, and surprise, if you have keywords in your business name, like your rankings magically just start showing up. What else? More user engagement signals, more personalization over the years has like kind of come into play. And then when Google rolled out three main ranking components, RDP, I haven't. It's super hard to test this, but I kind of believe that like distance as a ranking factor varies based on the primary category that's being used. Um, like if you're looking for pizza delivery near me or like a local coffee shop, sure, that's going to be like the number one ranking factor. But maybe in medical, legal, home services, I don't think it's as strongly weighted, where relevance and prominence are a little bit higher up on the totem pole.
Okay, cool. Another kind of niche question I've got for you, which I've heard mixed opinions about this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts, is how much does the website play into the Google Business Profile ranking? And specifically, I've seen some people say that the website page that you link to from the Google Business Profile, that's the only one that matters, or the website as a whole matters. Can you touch on that?
So that would primarily be like the prominence of the listing. Any change you make, and like if you have access to your server logs, any change you make to the listing, even not just updating the website URL, anytime you save, that creates a crawl of the page that's being linked to. Now, the crawl is going to keep going. It's not just going to crawl that one page and then be done. So the primary page you're ranking to, which usually everyone always just links to the homepage, unless it's a multi-location business, then they'll link to like the location page.
Mm-hmm.
The primary page, in my experience, has a little bit more weight with what you're going to rank for versus any of the other additional categories or any of the other services you're trying to rank for. So like if you're, a home service business, like HVAC as an example, and we've tested this in ways, like categories should absolutely be changed based on seasonality. But we'll also test and see if we rank, like it's cold season right now. So if we're linking to, instead of the homepage, well, let's link to the furnace repair page and see what happens to those types of rankings in the map pack versus just change the primary category and see what happens. And then when it's shoulder season, flip it to maybe plumbing. And then when it's heating season or AC season, then flip it to like something else. That's a big fan of testing. Would always test those. Sometimes like you see pretty good improvement by linking to a very specific page or just the homepage. Because then what's also in play too is like the backlink profile of that website. So like if it's a very strong backlink profile to the website, and you've done very well with internal linking to pass like link authority from the homepage to the pages you really want to rank, that's going to flow through too. Versus if you just like have this almost orphan page that's solely dedicated on this one service that the client really only wants to rank for.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no link value coming from anywhere else on the website, then it's probably not going to rank very well.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's actually something I used to believe in. And then I started learning more about it, listening to local SEOs like yourself. And I was like, oh, no, it's the whole website. It's the authority of the company as a whole. So it's not even necessarily the website, but it's all the backlinks going to the website. It's all the citations. It's all the people talking about you, mentioning you. Like overall, like how many votes, how many followers do you have? All of these different factors that play into it. So I was kind of a very niche SEO guy. And now I feel like I'm almost doing everything in digital marketing now because almost all of them play into SEO.
Yeah. My opinion on like local search hasn't changed over the years. And like my overarching belief system is that Google's trying to rank what's popular in the offline world in the online world. So how do you do that? Do real world stuff. like sponsor like little league teams and like get involved in the local community. Because like if you're building up more of a local brand presence, as we've seen, like if you haven't seen any of like Glenn Allsup's work from Viper Chill, would highly recommend checking out, because like he does like deep dives on like massive corporations that just dominate SERPs. It's all outside of local, but it's like I think 3 to 5 conglomerates pretty much own like 80% of like massive amounts of real estate on SERPs.
Wow.
And where it's, you know, Home Depot doesn't sponsor like in that, in like huge banks, they don't sponsor like, you know, all these little local ring-a-dings for just because they are trying to be, you know, good and community oriented. They're doing it because it's way more about brand presence and brand repetition.
Hmm. Okay. And I'd like to get tactical for a second here. If a like a home service local business owner is listening to this, how can they start sponsoring places and doing charities? Is there something specific they search up? Is there like a place they can go to and then find these places to sponsor? How do they go about local sponsorships and charities and all that?
I mean, you can simply just Google it, and like search operators for stuff like that still work, where you put like I haven't thought about them in a while, but like is normally I just copy and paste. But like in title colon, then you in quotes sponsorship or sponsors, or like, you know, if you know, you're based in Chicago, so like you just search Chicago sponsorship opportunities
Hmm.
or nonprofit, and then you could do site.org to exclude any .coms or .nets, um, or even reach out to. I would initially start with um, like the rest of the employees within the organization. Like, hey, do y'all know of any nonprofits that you really care about that you think we should get involved with? I would start there. And the more and more you can tie it into like outside of what does my client care about other than when they hire us to, you know, for pest control or as a locksmith or replace a garage door, replace a furnace, whatever. What do they care about? And it's like GA4 still provides it, but like in older analytics, you could go to affinity categories and look, and they would show you and be like, oh, usually you see pet lovers and like restaurant foodies. So you look like, okay, what do my customers care about outside of making sure that like their house is in order, and then okay, what opportunities exist there? Like a good example for like a veterinarian would be partnered up with like the local no kill animal shelter,
Mm.
right? Where it's like, okay,
Hmm.
your target customers are also care about pets, and so they're going to see your name there with you partnered up with there, so it's going to build like more goodwill, local goodwill. It's like that. Those types of things. There's also a lawyer I know in he's based in Portland, but he has a satellite office here in Bend. Every St. Patrick's Day, he's a DUI lawyer. Every St. Patrick's Day, what he does, and he gets like on like the traditional news, our news KTVZ,
Yeah.
and it's digitally. It's the same promo every year, where like to limit the amount of people drinking and driving, like take an Uber, get your receipt, email it to him, and he'll pay for it. And he's a DUI
Dang.
lawyer.
Dang.
And like the amount of like, so not only is he building like local goodwill, like, oh wow, Michael Romano's such a good guy, but he's also like getting lots of good links out of it too. And it's directly tied. I mean, it's tied in the opposite end of what he does for a living.
Hmm.
So it's like if you can find opportunities like that, they always pay big dividends.
Wow. Okay, that's a really good idea. I've never heard of one like that before. That's awesome. And you, as a local SEO agency owner, do you think that that's something that we should be doing as agencies, or that's something that they should be doing as a local business?
So the way that we approach it is we have a link building questionnaire we ask our clients to fill out, and we ask them if they are actively or have in the past engaged with anything like that. Um, if they have, great. Then we want to talk about it and see like, hey, is there an opportunity to revisit that, or if they're interested. But it's also based on like how they like score on wanting to sponsor local companies or local nonprofits. And what we'll do is one of our deliverables, it's uh, just the opportunities that we found. that align with what they're looking to accomplish. So then we provide all that information, like here's who here's the opportunity, here's our notes on it, here's the potential costs, here's the potential impact, and then we give it to them, and then it's up to them, like, okay, do you want to move forward with any of these?
Hmm.
If so, because we always we create like a fictitious person that works as an admin assistant for that home service provider. And then so like we'll do all the outreach for them as the admin assistant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when there's a need for a handoff, then we'll hand it off to the actual client to fulfill it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's what I've seen work best as well. Emailing from the company email, and it's like you're part of their staff, which as an agency you basically are, but still emailing as the agency, they like immediately mark you as spam. So, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Cool. And for people that aren't familiar, I mean, it's doing the like the local charities and the local sponsorships is a great way to get your company name out there, but it's also great to build links. And kind of as a kind of a parlay to that statement is that is great for building local links, but is there any space for building high DR links? Basically, are you guys more focused on local or high DR, or is there a mix of both?
So what we built, we've only Amanda has presented it maybe a couple times in MozCon. We built our own tool that we call our link it's a link benchmark. And so what we do is like we export links from the client and from local competition, and then we upload it to the self-learning system. And it's a link classification system that has nothing to do with DR or domain authority,
Mm-hmm.
where it classifies links based on how we manually tagged it. Is it a citation? Is it a true local link? Is it a topical link? Or is it spam garbage? Or is it other?
Hmm.
So then we build a benchmark of the client against the competition that we're trying to outrank. And the benchmark really kind of shows like the gaps where maybe the client they're crushing it with citations and topical links, but they have no local. Then
Mm.
our focus is going to be way more on local than it is going to be on the others. Um, Vice versa, like the benchmark really kind of highlights, okay, here's where the client is lacking, and we need to focus a little bit more on than the others.
Okay, cool. And is there like a certain link building budget that companies should have, either agencies or local businesses?
Uh, Hard to gauge. We really kind of like the way that we operate, like we're a deliverables focused company. We don't charge by the hour. Every deliverable we have a retail rate for. And when we take on the client, it's like, okay, here's all the stuff that we need to course correct. Usually the first 3 months, there's lots of research, content improvements or content consolidation, uh, backlink research, all of that. Then we kind of look at, okay, what do we need to prioritize? If it's home services, we have a client right now who they have 14 different services that they want to rank in like 16 different cities in one county. And there's no content that exists for, like, we have, top level content for all those services, but not dedicated content for all of those cities, for all of those little
Yeah.
services. So then we're looking at like, okay, do we need to prioritize link building right now or content?
Mm.
So it's like, well, content is going to be absolutely needed first before we even start link building. So it varies for sure, depending on where the client's at. I was talking to this PI firm uh, that we might be working with, and like they have what I call striking distance opportunities, where they have like the content that is could potentially rank that's ranking between position like 7 to like 20. The content itself is decent, um, and I call that striking distance opportunity to get it from where it's currently at to like top 5 is not rocket science. It is not. It's mainly going to be link building
Mm-hmm.
and making sure like internal linking is done very well too. Uh, so like what I initially proposed to them was solely focused on building links to get that content to rank, because that's where what I looked at compared to the relative competition that they're trying to outrank, they are way behind on.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Relating to like ranking on each individual keyword. So you're saying that one client, I believe you said like 16 different services and like 14 different cities. For something like that, should you ideally be setting up a location service page for all of those, or should you just be setting up a location page for each of the cities, then try to rank each location page on each of the keyword variations, or maybe make blogs on them? What's your strategy to rank on all those?
Uh, like with most answers in SEO, it depends.
Yeah.
Like uh, what we would probably be looking at, what we're going to be looking at is, okay, how many of these cities are actually like, maybe I would call them a town, not an actual city, where, okay, the next city over, let's look at actual search behavior, look at Search Console data to validate if people are actually searching for this with this city name. Um, and then from there, so like I imagine a third of those cities are going to be what I would consider towns. So
Hmm.
we don't need location pages for those at all. Where we could sprinkle in a couple mentions of them on the city right next to it and would probably rank just fine because the competition isn't going to be as big there. But all of the different uh, services that they offer, I imagine we'll have a blended version of that too. So instead of having like a unique page for every city, every service, it'll be a consolidated version. Um, that's really going to come down to what I spoke about with like merging towns and cities together, and then looking at what we have a deliverable called SERP analysis, where we would look at those SERPs, see what's actually ranking, and then determine like, okay, do we actually need a dedicated page for this service in the city, or if we have a subsection on the main location page for it, do we think that's going to suffice? So
Okay,
it's kind
cool.
of like, you know, if this was like 10 years ago, okay, we're just going to create a dedicated page, dedicated one for each one, and then it's going to rank. Um, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I've seen, and that's duplicate content, which is really the problem that we're talking about here. Is that if you make so many different pages and they're very similar services and they're very similar cities, there's going to be a ton of overlap. So when people are making these pages, how important is it to make them unique? Should they be incredibly unique and not have anything the same, or can they have some overlap?
My some overlap is going to absolutely happen no matter
Hmm.
how
Yeah.
creative you get. My internal like gut check on this is if it's anything more than like 55% dupe, then it's not going to get indexed.
Mm. Wow. Okay. Not indexed at all.
Yeah, you'll show up in Search Console as crawled, not indexed.
Wow. Okay. And for people that don't understand what that means, can you explain that?
Yeah, so Google, like you write all this content, you're like, okay, we're going to rank all these pages for everything that we want to rank for under the sun, and you resubmit your sitemap and or maybe you do like a live crawl from Google and then you submit it for indexation. Google crawls it and they determine based on their machine learning systems like that it's not good, it's not good enough. And then so it shows up in the report like it's crawled, not indexed. Meaning
Mm.
they crawled it, they determined that the content isn't good enough, so it's not even indexed in Google.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something people should look out for. Ideally, checking their Google Search Console, seeing if it's even indexed.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And besides Google Search Console, what tools are you using on a regular basis?
Tools, Search Console, Looker Studio. Buddy of mine, Noah Lerner, he built, I forget what it's called, but it's like what Search Console would be if an SEO built Search Console.
Hmm.
So like when we get access to a client Search Console, we have it's called Rubot that gets added to Search Console with full access, and it downloads the previous 16 months worth of Search Console records, puts it all into a BigQuery database, and then every day keeps downloading those records, puts it into the BigQuery database, and then the Search Console report has like 16 different pages on it where you can slice and dice, look at trends, look at uh, there's a lot of stuff that can be done, um, which makes it very, very useful. We use SEMrush, Ahrefs. We use Bright Local a little bit. We use Whitespark's local rank tracking tool. What else? We use ClickUp a lot for operations. It's even like it's our sales pipeline. I built our sales CRM in there. Slack, other tools. I know we use Microsoft Clarity a lot too. That's kind of like a default we install on every client's website. What other tools? Sitebulb, Screaming Frog. I still use Screaming Frog because that's what I've been using forever.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the team, they like Sitebulb, so they have licenses for that. I have my Screaming Frog license.
Okay, cool. And specifically for local business owners that obviously aren't as SEO savvy as you, are there any must-need SEO tools that they should be using?
I wouldn't necessarily, you don't really need a tool for this. Tools can definitely help, but some type of like review building strategy.
Mm.
If that's not in play and you're just waiting on customers to write good reviews, because you can almost guarantee that if they're pissed off, they're going to write a negative review.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be baked into some type of process or just part of the ethos in the company. So whether a tool is being used or a process that is like mission critical, we have our own version of the tool, but I know Whitespark they came out with like their GBP monitoring tool. It's like any potential changes to the listing, you get notified right away to also like reject the change, which like changes can happen and sometimes it gets published even before you've had time to review it. I think it's $1 per listing per month, so it's super affordable. Other tools, I can't think of anything else that would be practical because they're probably, if they're not using it on a daily basis, then it's just a waste of money.
Okay, cool. Which one do you like better, SEMrush or Ahrefs, and why?
Uh, I like Ahrefs. Like
I'm the SEMrush guy.
Yeah, one of my like best friends is like a VP there, and he's nuts. Not, he would be super happy that I said that, but just because like I've been using it for years, and they're the way, I don't know, like at the local level, I feel like their data is a little bit better, and their visuals are just better in my opinion.
Okay, cool. And I'd like to dive into some pretty niche stuff regarding Google Business Profile. So let's talk about something like services. How important are services on the Google Business Profile?
From a ranking perspective, minimal. For a user experience perspective, potential conversion can be very helpful. Uh, I wish you could have photos attached to services, like we did for products, or like we do for products. Yeah, like good to look at. Make sure you have all the right services in there. Is it silver bullet? No. Can it help a little bit? Sure.
Okay,
How
cool.
much? We'll never know.
Yeah, yeah. And then what about other small things, maybe like products or Q&As or other parts of the Google Business Profile?
Uh, well, then kind of get into like profile completeness, which like that's really going to affect the relevancy of a listing. Um, it's one of like our initial deliverables in month one for every client is like we do an optimization task, like where we go through all of our checks and balances, ask the client if any of the other additional attributes apply to them. The other big thing we want to focus more and more on are photos, especially in home services. Like you see a fair amount of stock or outdated photos, where like we humans are very visual creatures. Like the more visual we can make a client's services or products, like the better it's going to help them uh, on a conversion perspective. And like if you also like, I don't know if you ever tinkered with the Cloud Vision API, but you can take a screenshot And like I'll do this live with like potential clients, and I'll say like everybody make a different type of face, like a silly face, an angry face, and
Yeah.
do that. Take a screenshot, and then I share my screen. I upload that photo to the Cloud Vision API to show them, and then it shows like, oh, this person is sad, this person is angry. Where like you're uploading the photo because if you do a search for like fish tacos, San Diego, like the photos that get displayed in the GBP, like in that show up in that 3-pack, like they're all fish tacos.
Mm.
Uh, and usually, like those photos that kind of get chosen are usually user uploaded. More often than not, they are.
Yeah.
Um, so, like photos can absolutely help with conversion and potentially ranking. Products, if the client has products, we used to just turn all the services into products, but Google's been kind of cracking down on that a little bit more. Um, those are also very visual. Big fan of the more visual we can make it for a potential customer, like the more beneficial it is for the user.
Hmm. For sure. And then what about Google Business Profile posts? How important are those?
Oh, ranking nil. Uh, if you have specials or anything, like yeah, like we still do posts for clients, but we'll do like a couple a week, and it's just you know basic stuff. We've noticed virtually nothing result from it. Every now and again, you might get some clicks to a post, and that's cool, but it's not anything consistent.
Okay, cool. Is there any specific strategy you follow there of linking to different website pages or linking to call, or is it not worth doing at all?
Link to call. What do you mean?
Yeah, like on a post, you could have like the picture,
Oh,
then the description, then
yeah.
link to call at the bottom.
Um, no, like we've normally we'll just add a link to like a blog post or a dedicated service page. Have noticed zero like improvements on ranking for that particular
Mm,
page. Uh, so like oftentimes if it's a special, which just defaults like a call now button.
okay. Okay, cool. And what do you see coming in the next year or two regarding local SEO, Google Business Profile, all that stuff? Because everything's moving so quickly. I think a lot of people are particularly scared that Google is just going to get wiped off the face of the earth, and now it's just going to be ChatGPT or Gemini or these other platforms. So really the first question I'll actually ask is, does local SEO on Google have longevity? Is it going to last?
I believe so. Like with cannibalization from AI overviews and ChatGPT and other Perplexity, other types of generative AI. Um, for informational type stuff, I think it's going to eat a lot of traffic. Where like if you're an information website and you rely on traffic to pay the bills because you're selling ads, like if I was a publisher, like yeah, I would be doing everything I can to figure out what to do. For the types of clients we work with, I have a hard time believing or seeing a massive trend of people for legal, home services, or medical, like your money or your life type queries,
Hmm.
relying on generative AI to give them a list of recommendations of who to call for X. Um, that might happen in the future, but I think it would take like a full generation of, like my daughter who's 2, you know, she will be ingrained with this stuff by the time she's an adult. They will probably be like, oh yeah, I just use ShimShim for all of my services because it's the best AI tool out, like whatever it is.
Hmm.
um, I just don't see it happening when there's so many other considerations to take into account, like e-commerce. Yeah, it can. I think it's going to absolutely affect, especially if you're like, oh, find me, like I know exactly what I want to buy, and then asking AI like, hey, I need you to find me the cheapest, you know, shirt that is this, or taking a photo, upload it, and be like, I need you to find this shirt in this size for the cheapest price, and then it does all that for you, and it says here it is. They offer free shipping. Like, yeah, that could see that happening, being more used to.
Okay, awesome. And do you have any predictions for changes in Google Business Profile? Do you think anything will change or will it basically be the same?
think it's all relatively going to remain the same, just varying degrees of things that will change. Like I hold out hope that business, like keywords in the business name, drops as a massive ranking factor. Um, but that's been 15 plus years as a hope.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the likelihood it's going to change, doubt it.
Okay. Okay. And I've seen people think that maybe Google Business Profile posts will get terminated. They're not going to be around anymore. Do you think that's going to happen?
Possibly. Um, Google loves to put new stuff out there and then just put it in the graveyard shortly thereafter.
Hmm.
Where, if they have they have all the data, right? Showing engagement and what's being clicked on, what's being actually used. Um, if the engagement rates are crap and with all the SERP testing that they do, they show that there's very little engagement, they'll probably axe it because that's also taking up real estate.
Yeah.
That's additional real estate that they can monetize.
Okay. Cool. And also another um, out there question I've got for you is who are the top local SEOs and top local companies that you listen to get local SEO news and to stay informed in the space?
Um, One for the general industry of SEO, it's not specific, just local SEO. Aleda Solis, her SEO FOMO newsletter is a good one.
Hmm.
Um, for local, uh, I don't really subscribe to any more newsletters. I haven't in a while, but like who I engage with and chat a lot
Mm-hmm.
about with, it's going to be like other people that are in local U, Joy Hawkins, um, it, David Min, Mike Blumenthal, and forget the other gentleman's name. I think it's Greg Sterling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Sterling. Yeah.
They have, but they're switching over to like a pay model for their what they're doing, which is really can be really really useful. But I think it's only like $20 a month, so it's
Mm-hmm.
super affordable. Um, who else? Like I don't even think he has a newsletter. A couple of my friends in the industry that I chat with somewhat frequently, infrequently with, but those they don't have newsletters.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's a big one that I've been following recently. Near Media and their podcast
Yep.
Near Memo. Been loving that recently. I've watched all the recent ones. I think for at least the past month, maybe the past few months. But those guys, those three are all really dialed in. They know what they're doing. So, yeah. Actually, I kind of forgot about it, but I will subscribe to that newsletter. I'm sure it's value packed, and yeah, I think it was only like 15 to $30, which is super cheap.
Yeah, I think if you pay for the entire year, it comes out to like maybe $20 a month.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. And just overall, because we've touched a lot on Google Business Profile, I'd like to talk a little bit about website SEO while I've got you here. Um, what should companies be focusing on their website, local businesses? Should it be the location pages? Should it be the service pages? Should they just really dial in the homepage or something else? What should they focus on their website in particular?
Oof. It depends. One is like overall messaging. You know, if a lot of companies have like a brand Bible, brand guidelines. So if you were to go through the page on your website, like, does that echo through the content that you or current vendor has provided? If it doesn't, then there's room for improvement right there. A couple things that always move the needle, and it's super easy to change. When, especially if, like from the homepage, you'll all like, especially I mean, for a lot of websites out there, not just like small businesses, a lot of internal links have the anchor text of read more, and read more is not a very good indicator of what you're going to. So
Hmm.
like changing that anchor text to something that's a little more informational or keyword rich usually always improves ranking for the linking page you're linking to. Internal links still hold a ton of value that usually kind of seems so basic, or like just relying on nav links or footer links for internal linking. Had a client after it was a core update. This was like 3 years ago, and one of the pages that wasn't even optimized for the main keyword, which was like plumber, um, was ranking position 10. And so what I did was I changed the title tag to in the meta description to be more reflective of that primary keyword. and moved up to position 8. And then the only other thing I did after that was I added 3 internal links with varied anchor text from other, decent traffic pages that had decent backlink flow going to them. And it shot up to number 2. And now it
Wow.
alternates between number 1, number 2. It outranks Yelp, Angie's List, and we never even updated the content. Like internal links help so freaking much. Something else that I, if it lines up, I like to do is if like for like let's take one of like pest control, right? Let's say it's a Chicago-based pest control company.
Hmm.
Their homepage is optimized for pest control Chicago. But let's say they rank position like 30, and there's another page that's kind of optimized for pest control that's ranking somewhere similarly. I will de-optimize the homepage and pass more, internal anchored flow. I don't want to say juice. I hate that terminology.
I hear that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me want to gag. Like flow sounds so much better,
Yeah. Yeah.
or authority, um, to that child page, for the sole reason that like child pages qualify for rich results and home pages do not.
Mm.
And like on mobile, oftentimes, more often than not, you'll see photos show up with the result. And we know of 3 different structured data types that we can use to dictate what photo gets used when a photo is used, which again can attract eyeballs, attract traffic. But then you also have, aggregate rating and other rich result types that could still qualify for a child page, but they won't qualify for home page.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's essentially what we do at my agency too, where I think the homepage should be optimized for the brand. Like that kind of just makes sense that each page should be mainly around one topic, and the homepage, that's just the website. It's your company. So I think it should be all about your company. So I see a lot of companies do this. Maybe they're ranking on like one main keyword and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting, a decent amount of traffic from it." But it's all going to their homepage. It's not even actually a targeted page. Which, is okay. It's not the worst if it's better to get leads than not to get leads. But usually that's what I recommend is optimizing the homepage for the brand.
Yeah, yeah. But then, which kind of goes back to GBP, where if the page you're linking to on the GBP is the homepage, well, that page gets crawled, and it's primarily about the brand.
Hmm.
Sure, there's going
Yeah.
to be internal links to other service pages, but then that's where you want to start testing to see like, okay, if I link to this service page that the client really wants to go after, what happens to map pack rankings when we do that? And like those tests, like the results happen pretty quickly, like within a day or two. It's not
Hmm.
like you have to wait for a core update or anything like that.
Okay, cool. Is there any, because you've mentioned SEO testing a lot over this podcast, which I really like. Is there any specific strategy you have regarding testing, or do you kind of just do it off the cuff?
For like GVP, primary category tests, like that's pretty standardized. Landing page tests, like we'll provide recommendations and then let the client decide. For other, like if it's for search experience optimization, we'll come up with the recommendations, present to the client, and then get their approval to move forward on 1 or 2 of them. But usually it's kind of like gather data and then see what we would want to test or experiment with. Another test, which we don't really do a lot because it it comes off really spammy, but it works. So it's like, well, it still works. Is keyword spamming the hell out of the title tag.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it looks atrocious where it looks kind of like meta keywords. But every freaking time we do it, it's always like a decent net positive.
Really? So,
Because
so
yeah,
how much are you spamming it? Can you like explain what it is for people that don't know?
so like your title tag, you've got what's it, 561 pixels or whatever the length is. It used to be 60, 63 characters, some change. So you normally lead with your primary head term, a separator, and then brand name, which like that's kind of shifted where you only do the brand name like on the contact page and maybe the homepage and maybe the about page. So this test is where, and it was Joel, I forget his last name. I think while he was at Patient Pop, he presented his research on this, and that's how we started testing it.
Hmm.
Um, and he used to be like one of the figureheads at Google Business Profile, like he kind of ran it. Is you're taking a title tag, and then you're sure you can make it start initially like a regular title tag, primary keyword location separator, call to action, another separator, and then you just start adding lots of other variations of the main head term, other locations, different like combinations where it just looks
Yeah,
bad.
I
You know,
know.
like we're talking like 250 to 300 characters bad. Because like what you're relying on is truncation or Google just deferring to the H1
Hmm.
of that page, which usually they'll pick the H1. So you make sure the H1 sounds good, has the primary head term, and maybe call to action. And time again, you always see a lift.
Dang, dang. Yeah, I've seen Darren Shaw talk about that a lot, and some people kind of come at him. They're like, "Dude, you shouldn't be doing that." And he's like, "Come on, guys, it works."
Yeah, it's like, is it against like Google's guidelines? Like, you can make an argument it's not.
Mm,
Like, sure, Google gives recommendations on title tag length, but they don't mention like we will penalize you if you do anything like this. It's
wow.
like stuff like that. That's more like I call gray area. Um,
Hmm.
there's a black hat. It's a link scheme is what it is that I found like 4 years ago. Still works to this day, and it works quite well. Uh, but I've never recommended it to a client, and I never will because I found the footprint. I know how it operates. So I'm like, I, I couldn't subject a client to that just if they ever got a manual action. I've never had a client get, knock on wood, a manual action. And I don't intend on that ever happening because that would just really not be good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. It sounds like we're on the same page of being white hat, doing things the right way. I'm honestly scared of Google, with all the new updates, all the new crackdowns. I think they're really just gonna keep cracking down more on companies, and I don't think it's worth the risk of doing any potentially even gray hat stuff. Really trying to keep it white hat. So yeah, I completely agree. And I could ask you questions all day, Blake, but we're over an hour here, so I want to cut it here. But I will ask you one last question, which is, what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned in the past few years?
Hmm. Professionally and personally.
You choose.
Ooh, dang. Uh, biggest lesson. Like there's many, but it's like, okay, what's
Hmm.
like the biggest one? Um, no matter like there's all like no matter how buttoned up you think everything is, things can change just like that.
Mm.
Uh, I learned that lesson early on, but like I continue to learn it. Where that garage door repair company, like they were like family to me, and I went down and visited them every week to pick up a check. Like it was great. And then about a year in, I woke up to a text message saying that they were firing me and hiring this other guy who I had actually introduced them because he was going to help out on some SEO stuff, um, to save like $600 a month. And I was like, it's like, ooh, that hurt.
Yeah.
But at the time, they also represented like 2/3 of my income, which I learned that lesson. Like, never, like, if a client represents anything more than like 15 to 20% of like revenue for the entire agency, like, that's terrifying because
hmm
things change no matter how good you think you have it with a particular client. Like, sometimes they leave, new person gets brought in, and or they get gobbled up by private equity. Like, that's happened a lot of home services. We've had
hmm
great clients we worked with, they get acquired, private equity comes in, and they've got their own things, and you end up losing a client. Like, dang, we put in all that work, and like, they get acquired and now we're out.
Mm.
But it's just business. Don't take it personal.
Yeah. So true. Awesome. I love that lesson. And it was so great having you on the podcast, Blake. Thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find you and learn more about what you do?
uh Twitter and LinkedIn. I haven't, or X, I guess it now is. I'm also on Blue Sky. My handle is the same across all three, at Blake Denman. Um, our company website's Rickety Roo. And then I have a personal website, which I haven't updated in many months, but I need to get back into it. Is just blakedenman.com.
Cool. Okay. All those links will be in the description. Anything else you'd like to plug or mention?
Um, Testing is a lot of fun, and you can go off of what everybody else is, you know, just read blog posts and be like, oh yeah, we'll incorporate this. Uh, Test everything for yourself and see what works and ditch what doesn't. Like, it, take what you want, leave the rest. It's kind of how we operate.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast, Blake. I learned a ton from you. I think my audience will find this super valuable. So thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks, Danny.
All
Cheers.
right, thanks, Blake. Bye.